up, everybody? So today you are going to learn how to build an authentication system completely from scratch in Node.js, Express and MongoDB. So we will end up with this where we will have our sign in and sign up button and also a dynamically rendered drop-down menu based on if we are signed in or not. So if I click on sign in, I can sign in with my account and this takes me to the profile page with the email and the internal MongoDB ID. And so now if I click here on account, you see the links have now changed and I can also sign out. So we also talk about not only how we can register a user and sign in a user, but also how we can sign out a user. And we will also talk about how we can protect routes based on if a user is signed in or not. So I'm currently signed in. So if I try to go again to the sign in form, you will see that this will just redirect us to the front page. And at the same time, if I sign out and try to access the user profile page, it will redirect us to the front page as well because we are currently not signed in and the user profile page is protected only for signed in users. So this tutorial is great to learn more about how authentication works in the background because, for example, in Rails we have device that takes care of authentication, but we never really see what device is doing in the background. So with Express, we are more exposed to the idea of authentication and how to approach this kind of problem. It's also a great tutorial to learn something about Express in general and how it works, and also about MongoDB, which is a NoSQL database. So I would say, let's get started. So to get started, let's cd to the desktop, and in order to be able to follow along, make sure to have Node.js and npm installed, and you can confirm this by saying npm version, which will give you back the current version you have installed. Once you have confirmed that you have npm and Node.js installed, the next thing we need to do is to install Express. But before we do that, let's quickly talk about what Express actually is. So here on the website, they say fast, unopinionated, minimalist web framework for Node.js. And I think that's a pretty accurate description of what Express actually is. But to make this even more straightforward, Express gives you a web server and some routing, and that's it. Everything else, for example, authentication, is completely on you. So you have all the freedom to add the authentication system the way you want it. I'm actually not a fan of these so-called micro frameworks, but at the same time, they are really good to understand what's going on. Because, for example, in Rails, we have a device that takes care of authentication, but we never really see what it does in the background. So even though we are working in a different environment, the approach how to do authentication is pretty much everywhere the same. So what you are going to learn today can be applied to pretty much any other environment as well. So to install Express, simply type in npm install Express, and then very important, add the global tag. Once you have done this, we can then also add the generator. And so what this Express generator does is it creates a basic project for you. So instead of setting up everything on our own, which is not that complicated, but that's not the focus of this tutorial, Express gives you a basic project. And in fact, there's actually never really a case where you would like to set up everything on your own, because you will probably end up with something very similar that Express generator gives you in just a few seconds. And so make sure to run npm install and then Express generator and then the global tag. And so now what we can do is we can type in Express H, and this will give us back all the options that we can run. So for this tutorial, I will use EJS for my view engine, but if you're familiar or confident with any other engine and you prefer to use another engine, feel free to do so. So to create a new project, all we have to do is to type in Express, then the name of the app. Let's call it simply Auth, and then EJS for the view engine. And then we have to cd into the folder and type in npm install to install all these dependencies. And then we can start the server by typing npm install. And by default, the host will be always 3000. And there we go, we get the standard message here, Express, welcome to Express. So we'll open up another tab and open up the text editor. And so here on the left side, you can see the basic structure of our project that ExpressJS has created for us. So inside public, we have the images folder, JavaScript folder, and style sheets folder where we could save the style CSS files. Inside routes, we have the router, which is something I will come back in just a moment. In views, we have the HTML files. And inside app.js, we have the configuration to start our Express app. Now, if this is your first time seeing this, this might look to you a little bit complicated, but it's actually not that complicated. So don't worry, we will come back to this file, and after a while, you get used to that. And again, it's not that complicated. So when we open up views, you see we are rendering here this variable title. So where is this coming from? So inside routes, we have the index file. And here we have a router with the root path, and then we are responding with a render index and then the title express. So if I would change this here to whatever and save the file and go back to the browser and refresh the browser, you see that we see no changes, even though I have saved the file. So why is that so? So because Express is just a micro framework, it doesn't take care of restarting the server whenever we make changes or whatsoever. So one solution would be obviously to restart the server every time we make a change, and this would result into Express getting aware of the changes we made. But of course, that's not something we want for developing our app. So for this tutorial, I will use Supervisor. So make sure to install Supervisor, npm install Supervisor, and then the global tag. And so Supervisor will watch our files. Whenever we are saving the file, it will automatically restart the server. So all we have to do after we have installed Supervisor is to shut down the server, and instead of saying npm start, we can say supervisor bin /www. Hit enter, and this will start the server again. And as you can see, everything is still working. But at the same time, I can also now type here in something, save the file, and we will see immediately changes here. All right, so with that, we are pretty much ready to go to start developing our. So the first thing I want to do is to restructure our app. So currently we have inside routes two files. One is index and the second one is user. So let's delete user. Instead, I just want to create here my very own file. So inside routes, new file, user.js. And then inside app.js, you see that here are two variables that have been declared by ExpressJS. The first one is index router, which points to routes index. So this goes to this folder here and to this file. And this is basically the file where we just changed the title here. And then we also have a variable users router, which points to routes users, which was obviously the file we just deleted. So let's change this to user because we named our file user. And then also let's change the variable to user router. And down here we have this app use /index router. And then also an app use /users and users router. So let's change that to user and the path also to user. And I will come back to this in just a moment and we'll explain what this is here actually doing. So inside our router, which is currently empty, we need to import, just like in index.js, the express, and then take the router in order to be able to create new routes. So let's do this quickly. Express require express, and then router equals to express router. Like so. And what we can do now is we can create a new path by simply saying get router get, and then /, for example, user sign up, and then we get the function request response next, and then we are responding for now just with a message, this is sign up. Make sure to also export the module. Otherwise, app.js will have no access to the file here, so we will make this equal to the router itself. And now we are pretty much ready to go. So make sure to restart the server, and let's head over. Let's type in localhost user sign up. And you will see that we will get an error not found. So why is that so? So if I type in here another /user, it will work. We get back, this is sign up. So the reason why we have to add two user /user is because here inside our router we declared for the path /user sign up. And then inside app.js, down here we said, or Express generator said, app use / user and then user router. So the user router has already the / user path assigned to it. So every route that is inside our router will have the user in front of it. And with that, we can basically just delete that and just say / sign up, and the user will be automatically added by app use. Okay, so if I remove this now, see that it works. And if I try to get to the old path user / user, it won't work anymore, which is exactly what we want. All right. So with that, we have our basic route here. So the next step would be to add the HTML file instead of just sending a message. So here inside views, I will create a new folder, call it user, and inside user a new file called signup.ejs. And here for now, just an h1, this is signup form. So inside user.js, instead of saying responding send, I want to render and then user and then / sign up, and that's it. Now, it's very important to not add here another / in front of user, because that's a common mistake a lot of people do. So res render will look into the view folder, and we're saying user, so basically this folder, and then sign up, which is this file here. Here at the top on the other side, we need a / because this is the path we are using inside our browser. So now we can head over to our app, refresh this, and we get our HTML file back. Okay, so I think now it's time also to add styles to our app. So I will use Bootstrap 4 for this tutorial. So what I will do now is I will close everything here, save the file, and then inside views, I will create a new folder called layouts, and inside layout, I will create a new file called main.ejs. And then inside index.ejs, I will take everything, copy that, and paste it here in. And let's change the title here to out with Express. And we can remove the h1 and p tags here. And now what we can do is we can head over to the Bootstrap documentation, and I will grab here the CDN link and paste it inside the main.ejs file. Like so, and then let's grab also the JavaScript files and paste them in. There we go. Okay, so in order to be able to load the CDN in every other file that we have inside our project, all we need to do is inside the user signup HTML file, we can say here at the top include and then ..layout main. And now we should already see the styles from Bootstrap applied to our h1 tag. There we go. Okay, so everything is working. So let's work on our form itself. So here I will create a container. And inside container, I will use Flexbox, which is included by default in Bootstrap 4. So here, flex row, the flex, and then justify content center. And then let's add a div called md6. So div cards and div card header, sign up, and then under the card header, we create another div cards body, and then inside here, I will create the form and make sure to add here the path / user sign up, and then method post. And then we can work on our form. So div form group, and then label for the email, like so. And then also the inputs for the email. So very important to add here the name email, and I will come to this back in later on. So placeholder, also email, and then let's add also the class of form control. And now we should have something like this here. There we go. So let's add also the form for the email. So div form group, and again label, this time for the password, and then also the inputs, passwords, name, password, again very important, and then placeholder password, and let's add also the class form control. Right, so with that we have also the password form, and now we only need also a button. Very important to add here the type submit. And then for the class, I would just use btn, outline, primary maybe, and then sign up. Alright, so if I click now and sign up, this will give us back an error because currently we have no post path for this path here. So back to our router user, what I can do here is just copy that, paste it in, and instead of get, we want to post. And for now, let's just respond with a message, and let's get the body. And so this should give us back the email and the password. So let's try this out, click on sign up, and there we go. We get the email back and the password. So this confirms that our form is communicating with our router and we get the data. So the next step is to add a database. So like I said in the introduction, we will use MongoDB. And so make sure to have MongoDB on your machine installed and that is running in the background. On Mac itself, you can use a homebrew and say install MongoDB and then just start MongoDB as a service. Once you have done this, you can type in Mongo and this will give you back the Mongo console, and here we can manage our database. Now for our app, for our Express app, I will shut down the server and here we will install npm install mongoose and save this. And while this is installing, we can close here everything. And then inside app.js, we can initialize our database. So here we can say var mongoose and then get the library mongoose. And here we can establish a new connection by saying mongoose connect and then MongoDB / and then localhost 27017, which is the standard port, and then the name of the database. So this here, after the / will create a new database with this name in your MongoDB database automatically, except there is already a database with the name, with the same name, okay? And so we need to also add here the use new URL parser, otherwise we will get an error. And that's basically all we have to do to create a connection to our database and create a new database. So if I start now the server here and shut down the server and head over here and to my Mongo console and type in use auth, you see I get here the message back, switch to db-auth, which confirms that we have created the database. All right, so the next step is to create our schema. So just like in Rails or in Laravel where you create your tables, in MongoDB we can do something similar. So inside here, inside our root directory, let's create a new folder called models. Inside models, a new file called user.js. And here we just import mongoose one more time, and then we can also add schema, which is a part of the mongoose library. And now we are ready to go to create our new schema. So variable user schema, you can also just call it user, it's completely up to you. And then we'll make this equal to a new schema. And here we can define what our user takes, what we can basically save for a user. So of course we want to have an email and the type is a string, and let's also say that it should be required, and then also the password, so type string and then required true. That's basically all. And now we need to export the user schema, so we will use mongoose for that, just like so, and then user schema, and that's all we have to do. Now we can start to save a user with the user schema to our MongoDB database, and I will accept the email, which is a string, and the password, which is also a string. Okay, so if you have used any other major framework out there, for example Rails or Laravel, you should be familiar with this here. It's very similar to what we would do in a SQL environment. So let's head over, and inside routes, we need to add the user. So require and then models user. So with that, we have now access to the user schema here. because we export this, and here we are importing that. Now we could just save the user inside our database, and then we would be pretty much finished. But for this tutorial, I will use Passport. And the reason why I will use Passport is because it might look to you a little bit more complicated, but the way we save the user inside our database is basically the same approach we would normally do without Passport. So why I'm using Passport for this tutorial? Well, it's very simple to explain. Passport will give you later on a lot of functions that are really handy. For example, social media login. I think it's worth using Passport and learning Passport together with Authentication, because, like I said, the approach would be without Passport pretty much the same. So we just add a few lines of code, but we get later on much more functionality out of it. So that's why I think it's actually good to learn together with Passport. So now what we need to do is to install Passport. So npm install Passport and save. And we will also use for this strategy Passport local. So npm install Passport local, and then also save that. And then we also need express sessions so that Passport is aware of if the user is signed in or not. So npm install and then express session and then save, and that's all. Now let's head over to app.js, and here first off let's add Passport quickly and require this to Passport. And then down here under the cookie parser, let's initialize Passport by simply saying Passport initialize. And then we also need to say app use Passport session. There we go. And that's all we have to do in order to be able to use Passport. Now the next thing is also to add the session from express session. And all we have to do in order to be able to use that is to say app use session, and then we can add here a few arguments. Say the first one is the secret, so my secret, for example, not very secure, but whatever. And then resave set to false, and then also save initialize set to false. And that's all we have to do in order to be able to save cookies. Now back to our user router. Here we can import passports also, passport, and then also the local strategy, and make this required to passport local dot strategy, like so. And when we head over to npm and search for passports here quickly, you will see that there are two functions that we need to retype or just copy, and the function I'm talking about are these two here. So passport.serialize user and deserialize user. So let's just copy them and paste them here in, and we can basically minimize them, but let me quickly explain what they do. So whenever we will authenticate our user, this will be fired off by Passport in the background, and what it does is it's pretty simple. It just checks if what the user is. If we have an error, if not, just return the user with the user ID. And if we want to log out the user, well, then it searches for the user and gives it back to the system. So notice that it uses here user find by, and we have declared here our variable also as uppercase user. So if you would call this here user, for example, you would then also to name this here user, whatever, okay, just in case. Of course, I will undo that. And so we can minimize that because we don't really need to take care of these functions. Again, this is something Passport does in the background. What we need to do now is to create our strategy. So here we can say Passport use, then the name of the strategy. Let's just call it local.signup, and then new local strategy. And here we get the username field and set to email, and then the password field and set to password. Now you might ask yourself, where is this coming from? So email and password is from inside our views signup form. I said in the beginning that it's important to add here the name email and also the name password, because the local strategy takes these variables or takes these names here and has therefore access to the inputs. Okay, so that's how a local strategy is aware of what we are typing in. And here we can then add the verify function. So you see we get here verify function, and it takes the username, the password, and a done callback. So email, password, and then done. And all we have to do here is to check inside our database by saying find one. And for example, we can take the email. So if we find an email, let's make a callback function here with an error and the user. So if we have an error, all we want to do is return done with the error. If we found a user, well, that means there's already somebody with the email that this user has tried to sign up inside our database. So we need to throw an error, right? So return done. The error is null, false, and then we will return a message. Email already in use. Okay. But if there's no error and there's no user with the email address inside our database, we can create a new user by saying new user equals to new user. And then we need to assign simply the email by saying equals to email. And we have access to the email because it is inside the function here. And then we can also say new user password equals to password. And again, we have access to it because it is here inside the callback function. And then we need to save the user inside our database by saying save. And here we can make a callback function again with an error and the user. And again, if we have an error, return done in the error. Otherwise, just return done with no error but the user. And as you can see, done takes the error as the first argument, the user as second argument, and then the options we want to add. So we have no error if we found a user, if the user was saved, and we want to return no error, but and also the user. Okay. So that's actually all we have to do. And again, this might look to you a little bit much more complicated than it should be, but this down here, this part is basically the same approach we would do if we just would add this to a route. And what we did additionally with Passport was to add this here at the top and the callback function. And that's basically it. So I think it's worth it to learn together with Passport because, just like I said, the approach is pretty much the same, but it gives you later on much more functions. And so now that we have set up our local sign up, what we can do here is down where we say sign up, where we have the router post, we can remove here pretty much everything. Instead, we will say Passport authenticate, use the local sign up, and again this will go here and look for the Passport use local sign up strategy. And then we can use the options. If everything went fine, we can use success redirect, and this will be the path we want to be redirected once we have signed up. And then also failure redirect. So if something went wrong, just stay on sign up. Now, obviously we don't have this path user profile. So let's create here quickly a new path, and then we just copy this here from the top. And let's rename this to profile. And instead of rendering, I just want to send for now the request user. Let's see if we get the user back actually. So with that, let's start the server and see what we got so far. So now if I click on sign up, we were redirected to the sign up page, which means something went wrong. And I think that's because I already have a user with the email address in my database. So what I would do is say db, first make sure to use auth, and then db drop database. Like so. And now I should be able to register this account again. There we go. So we were redirected to the user profile page, and we get the internal MongoDB ID, the email address, and the password. Now currently our password is very unsecure, as you can see. So we will take care of that in just a moment. For now, let's also create quickly our sign in form. Let's head over and we will just do pretty much the same here. First, let's create here a new file inside user, call it sign in EJS. And here we just copy everything from sign up and paste it inside sign in, because our form will be pretty much the same. Very important to change here inside the form action it from user sign up to sign in. And then we just need to rename this here as well, and that's pretty much all we had to do in order to make this work. Now back to our router. Here we can just copy that and paste it in. And instead of saying sign up, we want to say sign in, and as well here sign in. And now we should be able to see our sign in form. There we go. Now the next step is to create our strategy. So this will be very familiar to what we did here in sign up. So password, use local sign in this time, and then new local strategy. And then again, we need to assign the username feed, which is the email which comes from our form. And then we also need the password field, which is the password. That's it. Now we need to get the verified function again, here at the email, the passwords, and then also the done callback. Now we need to find the user again. So we will search for the email again. So if we found the user, make a callback. If we have an error, as always, just return done error. And if we found another user, very important, we need to reverse now the logic, because here we are trying to sign in. So we need to find a user with the email address, unlike in the sign up form, where we don't want a user with the same email address. So what we need to say here is, if we didn't find a user with the email address, well, then we need to throw out an error. So if there's no user, return done, and again, nil, false, and this time the message is no user found with email address. Okay, and now if both of them are returning to false, well, then we just want, instead of creating a new user, like in the sign up form, we want just to return nil and the user. And that's all we have to do. So we can minimize that. And again, we can copy this here from the router post sign up and just paste it here in, and just change this to sign in and local sign in, and the same here. And that's all we have to do. So if we head over and I click here now and sign in, you will see this will take us to the profile page. So this confirms that everything is working. Awesome. Now let's take care of securing our password, because currently it's very unsecure. So let's shut down the server. And by the way, when we go to Mongo and type in use of and then show collections, you will see we get now the collection back users. And here you can say db users find, and this will give us back all the users inside our database. So this also confirms that we have registered and saved our user to the database. So you will get the email and the password. Okay, so let's shut down the server. And to encrypt our password, we can use bcrypt and save that. And then all we need to do is to go to our models user schema here. And here at the bottom, we need to create a function that we can call later on when we register a new account or when we sign in. So here we can say user schema methods, like so. And then we can create basically a new function. So let's call it secure password. And make this equal to a function that accepts a password argument. And here we can say this or return this password. So we are grabbing this one here, equals to bcrypt. And of course I have to like add here bcrypt before I can do that. So require bcrypt. There we go. So now we should be able to type in bcrypt, and then we want to say hash sync. And here we need to add the password and then a hash value of 12. And that's all we have to do to hash our password. Now, when we head over to our routes user file here where we sign up a new user inside our strategy. Instead of saying new user password, what we can do is say new user secure password and then add the password in here. So again, we have access to secure password because we have declared here the method. Now, if I head over and start the server, and go to sign up and create here quickly a new account. You see, when we are now redirect to profile page, we have as this password now this kind of hash going on here. So this was generated by bcrypt, and now it's encrypted, and only with the we can only encode this with the repassword. So obviously, if I try now to sign in, it will still work because we are not really checking for the password, if it's accurate or not, if it's correct or not. So if I type in here this email address, you see it works every time. So let's take care of that as well quickly. So inside user, let's create a new schema, and here we call this verify password. And again, we just take here the password as an argument, and then return this password equals to bcrypt compare. And then we can take the password that was given and compare it to this password. That's all we have to do inside user. Let's close our local signup strategy, and instead of let's open up the sign-in strategy, because this is where we want to compare the passwords. And here where we check if there is not a user with the email, we could also add here now or and say or if the user verify password. So this means if this turns to be out false, if the password is not the same as the hash password, well, then we can add here the message also password wrong. Now, of course, you could make this a separate call, but I think for this tutorial, we're totally fine with that here. So let's head over and let's try to sign in now. So if I try to sign in with a second account that has a hash password, it should work, which is the case. But if I try to sign in with the first account that has not a hash password, we should get an error, which is the case. So this is because the password of this account is not hashed. So to fix this, we can just drop the database. So db drop database, and that's it. There we go. Okay, so we have done this. We have secured the password. Now, what I also want to do is when a user signs up and is on their profile page, I no longer want them to be able to visit, for example, sign up. Okay, that's not something we want. So let's secure our paths. And to do that, all we have to do is to first off close everything inside our router. There we go. And then down here, I will create just a new function called isLoggedIn. And here we get request response next. And what we do here is we simply say if a request is authenticated, like so, which will return true or false. So if this returns to be true, just do whatever we want to do. Otherwise, just redirect to the root path. So now we can secure with that our profile. So if I type in here is logged in, this will now check if we are logged in. And if not, it will redirect us to the profile page. So if I type in here profile, you see it redirected us to the root path. So this is already working. And we can protect now also our signed in forms from signed in users by simply copying that and saying not logged in, and then just make here a false statement. Now all we have to do is to add to our router get paths here the not logged in function, like so, and the same here, not logged in, and that's it. Now it should already work. So if I sign in now as the user, see we are now redirected to profile page, and if I try now to access sign up, it redirects us automatically to the front page. This confirms that this is working, and we are pretty much finished with the authentication. There's one more thing I would like to do, and that is to add also routes to sign out, but we will do this in just a moment actually. For now, let's take care of our navigation, because currently we don't have a navigation bar, and also of the front page. So what I will do is inside layout main, I will head over to the Bootstrap documentation, go to Nav Bar, and I will just take here the Nav Bar example and paste it inside the body tag, like so. And now we should have a Nav Bar, at least if we go to user sign up, for example, there we go. Now we have here these gaps, and that's because we're still loading here the CSS. Let's remove this, and with that we should have now a normal looking nav bar. Let's customize the nav bar quickly. I will remove the search form because we don't need one for our app. There we go. And we also want to align these links here to the right side. So all we need to do is to change this here from MR auto to ML MD auto. There we go. And now they're aligned to the right side. And I will remove pretty much all links here except for the drop down. And let's rename the drop down to account, just like so. All right, and now let's change these links here. So what I want to do is to check if we are signed in or not, and then render these links based on that logic. But in order to be able to do that, we need some kind of global variable to know if the user is signed in or not. So inside our app.js file down here, just under the app use passport session, and it's very important that you add this here and not somewhere here at the bottom, otherwise it won't work. So app use, and then simply a function with the request respond next. And here we can say respond locals user equals to request user. And this request user is something that Passport gives us, which is very convenient. And then we can also add here next. So what I can do now inside main.js is here inside the nav bar drop down, I can add here an if statement and say if we have a user variable, well, then I want to do something. If not, I want to add also an else statement. Otherwise, we have an error when there is no user. And now what I can do is just take these two links here and paste them here in. And so if we have a user, this should be the account link, for example, and then the sign out link, which we currently don't have, but I will add this route in just a moment. And if we are not signed in, if we don't have a user, well, then just render the sign in link and then also the sign up link. We can remove these here from the bottom, and then of course let's add here quickly the paths user sign in, and then also the path / user sign up. There we go. All right, so now we are currently not signed in, so we get these links here. So if I sign in, and currently we can access the nav bar inside our profile because we're just rendering here this message. So let's take care of that as well. Let's go to user and create here. First off, let's close everything. And then inside views user, let's create a new file called profile.ejs. And let's copy at least here the include, paste it in. And here we just quickly add some styles, so a container, and again div flex row, the flex, and then justify content start this time, div col md6, and then again a cart, div cart header, profile, and then here div cart body. And here we can, for example, render the user email and maybe also the user _ID, which is the internal MongoDB ID. Now currently we don't have access to that, so inside the routes user file, we need to pass that down to the profile here inside our router. So first of all, instead of just saying a message, we want to render now user profile, and then we need to pass down the argument. So user is request user, and with that we should be able to see the information of our user. So sign in one more time, click on sign in. There we go. We have now here the nav bar, we get our profile and the email address, and so now the links have also changed here, as you can see. So let's take care of our front page. So inside index, let's remove here pretty much everything. Let's make sure to include layout and remove here one dot, because we just want to go inside layout. And then we can add also a container. I will also add a jumbotron inside here in h1 out with express, and then paragraph. It's awesome, try it for yourself. And then let's add here an h reference to the user sign in, and inside here a button with a type submit class btn primary sign in. Let's just copy that and paste it here in. Instead of saying sign in, we want to say sign up, and then let's change this also from primary to maybe danger. And now when we are on our landing page here, we get this. Let's add also here to jumbotron a margin top of 5 to have some space between the nav bar and the jumbotron. There we go. So if I click on sign in, this will take me to sign in page. If I click on sign up, this will take me to sign up page, and we are pretty much finished. So there's one more thing I would like to change here at the top. Let's rename the nav bar brand to Alpha with Express and make the route to the root path. There we go. So it should now also work. There we go. So if I sign in now and try to access the sign in page, this redirects us automatically to the front page because we're already signed in, and as you can see, we can also click here and sign out. So there's also now the link that we need to add to be able to sign out. So here again, I would just copy I guess this here from sign up, paste it here in, and here I would say sign out, and then I also want to say here respond with a logout, like so, and then respond redirect to the root path. There we go. And now if I go back, of course we have to add this to our main page. So here where we say sign out, let's point to this link here, and now when I sign in and click on sign out, this should sign us out and redirect us to the front page, and we can confirm that this is working. Actually it's not working because I can still click here on sign out. So let's see. Right, so I was able to fix it. Actually, I think the issue was because I had here also inside function next. So make sure to remove that, and with that it pretty much works. So maybe there was also some caching going on in the background, and I don't really know. So also make sure to restart the server. And again, on my side, it's not working. So if I sign in here and click on sign out, we see that we are now redirected to front page, just like before, but now we are actually signed out. All right, so that's basically all when it comes to authentication. Of course, there's also email validation, things like that. But just like I said, with Passport, you have a lot of things that you can add later on. That's why I added Passport to this tutorial. So if you want to learn more about Passport, the different strategies that you can use, you can simply go to passportjs.org packages. As you can see, you have here a lot of options. We use for this tutorial Passport Local. So this is this one here, and it's very popular. But you can use pretty much anything for GitHub. You can use the authentication for OAuth and things like that. And all of these authentications work pretty much the same like our Passport Local. That's why Passport is actually so great and so convenient to use, because you just have a few more lines, additional code, but at the same time you get a lot of functions later on, or possibilities later on. Now, of course, you could all of do of this completely on your own, but again, you could also write your web server completely on your own. I mean, you could always argue with whether you should use a package or not. I'm actually, just like I said, not a fan of these micro frameworks, except that they are really good to understand what's going on. Because as you can see, we just like finished our authentication system in 1 hour. It took us quite a while and I rushed it, to be honest. So that's not something I want to do when I'm developing apps. I don't want to like spend 1 hour just on the authentication. But again, you should also at some point understand what is actually authentication, what is going on in the background. The next step would be here maybe to learn more about cookies. Maybe that's something for the future I would do. I'm pretty sure I will do something very similar when it comes to authentication in another environment, for example, in Ruby or in Python. So there are also some micro frameworks, but again, just like I said in the introduction, it will be very similar to what we did here in Node.js and Express. Okay, so with that, if you learned something, if you enjoyed the video, or if you enjoy my content on my channel in general, make sure to subscribe, make sure to like the video. If you want to see any tutorials in the future, let me know in the comment section. And yeah, with that, thanks for watching as always, and see you maybe next time. Bye.